Welcome to Witches in Yoga Pants, your cozy corner of the cosmos where modern magic meets everyday life. We're here to explore magic, mindfulness, and personal growth with a grounded, no-fluff vibe. Whether you're into moon rituals, tarot spreads, or just trying to survive Mercury retrograde, you are in the right place. So get ready to disrupt some old patterns, explore what it means to reclaim your power, and remember who you really are. So pull up your yoga mat, light a candle, and let's get into it. Hello and welcome back. I'm really glad you're here. Wherever you're listening from today, maybe you're driving, maybe you're out walking, maybe you're just sitting with a cup of coffee. Wherever you are, I'm really grateful that you choose to spend this time with me. There's something special about this time of year. Even if the weather hasn't fully caught up yet, there's a subtle shift that starts to happen as the light changes and things begin to move again. And it's not just outside of us, it's inside of us too. Spring always feels like a return. It's my favorite time of year. The energy is not just the earth waking up, but something in us waking up alongside it. And lately, I've been thinking about that in a slightly different way. I've been thinking about it through the lens of goddess energy. So today, I want to explore the idea of the goddesses of spring and acknowledge them as energies that we move through, and maybe as parts of ourselves that we're remembering. Before we move into the goddesses themselves, I want to take just a minute to talk about what we're actually referring to when we use that word, goddess. Across different cultures and traditions, goddesses have been used as ways to represent different aspects of life, nature, and human experience. They've been connected to seasons, to fertility and creation, to love, beauty, and desire, to death, transformation, and cycles we move through. Each one carries a story, a set of symbols, and a particular way of understanding the world. And for thousands of years, people have used these stories as a way to make sense of what they're experiencing, both in the natural world and within themselves. To understand change, to understand growth, to understand the rhythms of life that don't always move in a straight line. And when we look at spring through that lens, it becomes something more than just a shift in the weather. It becomes part of a much larger cycle. It's a return, a reawakening, a moment back toward the light, toward growth, and towards life, but not in a way that skips over everything that came before it. Because spring doesn't exist without winter. It comes after it. It grows out of it. And that's part of what makes this season so powerful. It's not just about new beginnings. It's about what begins again after something else has already been lived through. The first goddess I want to talk about is Persephone. Persephone comes from Greek mythology, and her story is centered around her time spent between two worlds. She is taken to the underworld and becomes its queen. And for part of each year, she remains there. And then when she returns to the surface, the earth begins to bloom again, marking the arrival of spring. Her story is one of descent and return. What I find so powerful about her isn't just the idea of coming back, it's that she doesn't come back the same. She carries both worlds within her. There's a depth to her, a knowing, a transformation that doesn't get undone just because the season has changed. And I think this is something so many of us can relate to. There are seasons in our lives where we go inward, where things feel heavy or unclear, or like we're in the middle of something we don't really fully understand yet. And then there are moments when the cycles begin to come back out of that. We start to feel a little more like ourselves again, a little more open, a little more available for life. But we're not the same version of ourselves that went in. We've seen something, we've felt something, we've changed. And Persephone reminds us that both of those things can exist at the same time. You can carry depth and still move towards light. You can have walked through something difficult and still be ready for something new. Spring, through her, isn't about going back. It's about returning differently. From there, we move into a slightly different energy. This is the energy of Ostara, sometimes called Jauster. She comes from Germanic traditions and is associated with the spring equinox. She is connected to dawn, to the light returning, and to symbols of new life like eggs, hairs, that represent fertility and renewal. Her energy is tied to the moment where things begin again, with balance, light returning, fertility, and new life. And while Persephone carries the depth of transformation, Ostara carries the spark of possibility. This is the energy of something just beginning, not fully formed, not fully clear, but present. It's the small idea that starts to take shape, the shift in perspective that opens something up. It's the moment where you realize something's changing. And I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on beginnings. We think that they need to be big or certain or perfectly timed. But the energy of Ostara is much more subtle than that. It's curious and gentle. It's exploratory. You don't need to have all the answers. It just asks you to notice what's starting to emerge, to follow what feels a little more alive, and to allow things to begin without needing to control where they're going. As spring continues, that beginning energy starts to expand. Things don't just begin, they grow. They open and become visible. And this is where we meet Flora. Flora comes from Roman mythology and is known as the goddess of flowers and spring. She was honored in festivals that celebrated blooming, fertility, and abundance in the natural world as it came back to life after winter. Her presence is tied to growth that can be seen. She represents blooming in a way that can be seen. It's bold. There's a fullness to her energy. It's a sense of expression, of color, and of allowing what has been growing to actually take shape in the world. And I think this is where things can get a little uncomfortable for some of us, because it's one thing to feel something shifting internally. It's another thing to let it be visible, to let yourself be seen in it, to share it, live it, and take up space with it. Flora reminds us that growth isn't just internal. At some point, it wants to be expressed. And that expression doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be polished. It just has to be real. Then we have Freyja. Freyja comes from Norse mythology and is associated with love, beauty, fertility, and desire. She's also connected to wealth, magic, and a deep sense of personal power, often moving between both sensuality and strength with ease. Her energy carries both softness and sovereignty. But what I love most about her energy is that it's not passive. It's not about waiting to be chosen. It's about knowing your own value. There's a confidence to her. It's a magnetism, a deep connection to pleasure, to the body, and to what feels good. And this is such an important part of spring that I think we sometimes overlook. Because as things begin to bloom, as they become visible, there's also an invitation to enjoy them, to feel them, to experience them fully, not just to grow, but to receive, not just to do, but to feel. And for a lot of us, that can be unfamiliar, especially if we've been conditioned to disconnect from our bodies, to question what we want, to minimize our needs. Freyja brings us back into that, into sensation, desire, and worth. She reminds us that there's nothing wrong with wanting to feel good. There's nothing wrong with taking up space, and there's nothing wrong with being seen. And when you look at all of these together, there's a really natural progression. Persephone brings us through the return. Ostara opens the door to something new. Flora allows it to bloom, and Freyja invites us to experience it fully. And the truth is, you're not just one of these. You move through all of them. Sometimes you're still in the underworld figuring things out. Sometimes you're just beginning again. Sometimes you're in the middle of growth. And sometimes you're fully in your expression, in your body, and in the enjoyment of what you've created. Spring isn't just one moment. It's a process. And you're allowed to be wherever you are within it. So, until next time, honor the goddess energy you're moving through right now. Trust where you are in your own cycle of return, beginning, or bloom, and allow yourself to be seen in what's ready to come forward. Take what you've heard today even further by joining my newsletter community. Each week, you'll receive journal prompts and reflections connected to the episode that are designed to guide you in bringing these conversations off the podcast and into your own journey. Let's keep going deeper together. The link is waiting for you below.